So, good morning, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, we are ready to start this plenary session of the ICN Unilateral Conduct Working Group. I'm Nuno Cunha Rodrigues, so I'm the chair of the Portuguese Competition Authority, and it's a pleasure to be here in Barcelona. Again, many thanks to the CNMC and to Cani in particular. Enhorabuena, Cani. Es un placer de estar aquí otra vez en Barcelona y colaborar con CNMC. And also with the ICN and Andreas, thank you also for the organization. I'm glad to have a wonderful panel here of people that will share with us their experience. On my right, we have Andrea Pezzoli. He's the Vice Secretary General of the AGSEM, the Italian Competition Authority. Here on my right, it's my friend Reiko Aoki. She's Commissioner at the JFTC, the Japan Fair Trade Commission. On my left, we have Fangi. She's partner at Baker McKenzie and also a non-governmental advisor for the Taiwan Fair Trade Commission. And on my left, we have Mr. John Small. He's chair of the New Zealand Competition Commission. Well, he's not small, he's big, so he's kind of the antitrust paradox. But yeah. Okay, so we'll speak about unilateral conducts and the investigation of unilateral conduct case involves significant challenges. These challenges involve the growing technical complexity of this case, procedural issues, the standard of proof, and the fast-changing markets that call for swift intervention. Concerning these unilateral conducts, we have just recently seen the report published by the ICN Unilateral Conduct Working Group on a series of harm that was published in March this year that addresses several problems with unilateral conducts and the design of remedies in conduct cases involving substantial market power in digital markets. The report that was issued sheds some light in particular challenges involving cases concerning digital markets, and we'll try to cover also some of the topics that were raised in this report. So in the first part of this plenary session, our panelists will share their experience and their vision about the main difficulties that they are facing in unilateral conduct cases. And in the second part of the session, we will focus on relevant approaches and solutions to keep competition law enforcement adequate and efficient. So starting with the main challenges, and beginning with Reiko, I believe that the JFTC is one of the co-chairs of the ICN Unilateral Conduct Working Group. So you were leading the Unilateral Working Group project concerning unilateral conducts in digital markets, I suppose. So based on the conclusions from the project, Reiko, could you share with us an overview of the type of challenges that agencies are facing in this sector and your experience about this? So Reiko, please.
Sure. Thank you, Nuno. I'll be happy to do that. And before I forget, I'd like to thank Connie and CMNC for the wonderful conference before I forget. So now I'd like to share with you the UCWG report that Nuno just mentioned. JFTC served as a UCWG co-chair with French Competition Authority and the Spanish CNMC this ICN year. And and JFTC was fortunate to lead the project on survey of unilateral conduct in digital markets, and this was published as a report, as Nuno mentioned. And it was based on replies to our questionnaires from 47 agencies and 31 NGAs. This report summarized challenges that agencies faced in unilateral conduct cases in digital markets and approaches that were taken to tackle these challenges. I'd like to express my deep appreciation for those authorities and NGAs that contributed with their responses. Now, I'd like to share with you typical challenges that were mentioned in the report. I'll touch on the analysis of theories of harm, remedies, and legal or structural challenges. So for analysis of theories of harm, these are some of the challenges that were mentioned. One, difficulty in assessing anti-competitive effects, combining different practices into one conduct. This was pointed out by Switzerland, France, and Mexico. 2, necessity of focusing on the impact on quality and innovation besides price, pointed out by Canada. Difficulties in analyzing the cutting-edge technologies such as search algorithms, pointed out by Korea. And 4, dealing with a justification based on data privacy, pointed out by Canada. Next, some challenges regarding remedies. 3 main challenges were indicated. 1, ensuring that the remedies are sufficient to eliminate the conduct and remain effective in fast-changing market, pointed out by France. The timeliness of the remedies, pointed out by Brazil. And 3, the needs of significant human resource for monitoring on implementation status. Now, finally, for legal or structural challenges, 1, legislative issues arise from necessity of prohibiting unilateral conduct that do not meet the requirements but have anti-competitive effects due to the difficulty in establishing dominant position. This was pointed out by 11 agencies. 2, challenges in analyzing or assessing evidence in digital markets, pointed out by 21 agencies, especially technical difficulties in collecting data stored digitally, understanding of computer systems in investigated companies, and lack of expertise for IT forensic capabilities. And finally, 3, the difficulty of obtaining enough cooperation from the involved companies when requesting internal documents or a large amount of data, particularly when those companies are located outside the jurisdiction and do not have even local offices in the jurisdiction. In addition, 20 agencies out of 47 respondents said they have no enforcement experience against unilateral conduct in the digital area. And one of the reasons for this was lack of human resources, such as technical expertise. The report includes other challenges identified by the responding agencies, as well as how agencies have tackled these challenges. Lack of human resources, such as technical expertise, I think highlights the importance of internet agencies globally around the world sharing their experiences as well as their challenges. And a venue such as the ICN is an ideal venue that we must keep on utilizing in order to challenge the challenges of digital markets together. Thank you.
Thank you, Raki, so much for this overview. Now, moving to Andrea, I do know that the Italian Competition Authority has a huge track record of experience in unilateral conduct, both in digital markets and in more traditional markets. So, Andrea, based on your experience, could you let us know about what type of challenges do competition agencies face in order to keep the antitrust toolbox fit for purpose? Andrea?
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizer of this conference, the Spanish authority, and Cani Fernandez in particular. It's hard to believe that it's been over 2 decades since I contributed to the very first ICN's conference in Naples, and I vividly remember the immense effort it took to make an ICN conference a success. So thank you, really. And thank you for inviting the Italian Competition Authority to be part to this distinguished panel. My aim is to provide some insights concerning unilateral conduct drawn from the enforcement experience of the Italian Competition Authority. In recent years, a number of interesting challenges have been raised mainly from investigations concerning digital markets, but, and I'd like to stress it, valuable lessons may be drawn also from investigations involving much more traditional markets. Let's start from the challenges in defining relevant markets and assessing dominance in platform-based markets. It is evident, I would say it's obvious, that dynamic industries raise significant challenges for market definition and above all for the assessment of market power. Still, in my view, the definition of relevant market continues to play an important role. I mean, shall we say a relevant role? So, in my view, the main challenge comes from the need to predict the scope and the benefits of future competition. In this perspective, the increasing role played by scope and scale economies, mainly but not only because of the availability of data, suggests that in defining relevant markets, we have to look more deeply at what happens on the supply side, facing the risks related to a too broad market definition. In dynamic industries, the difficult task for antitrust agencies is the assessment of potential competition. In particular, the identification of potential competitors in a medium-long term horizon, especially if in the short run they seem just vertically related with the dominant player or even not related at all. This is quite important mainly for mergers, but also for unilateral conducts. I mean, the task may be rather daunting, given that not all concerns can be quantified, though they undoubtedly exist, and perhaps most crucially, because their unpredictable nature may clash with the need for legal certainty. However, what cannot be acceptable is to cope with these challenges just by freezing actual competitive market conditions and dismissing the unpredictable benefits that future competition, especially from today's quotation marks, less efficient competitors may bring. It is worth stressing this point. I mean, the inability to define the scope and to quantify the impact of a conduct doesn't mean that it doesn't exist and that might have an anti-competitive character. I mean, moving to the enforcement experience of the Italian Competition Authority, I can start from the Amazon FBA case, a case that possibly you know both for the dimension of the fine, I mean, 1.3 billion, and because the theory of harm concerning the tying between the possibility to be classified as a prime reseller and the need to buy the logistics services from Amazon FBA is by and large one of the concerns of the case currently run by the Federal Trade Commission. In this case, defining the relevant market, we privilege the retailer perspective while considering indirectly the effects on final consumers on the other side of the marketplace. As in most of the investigations concerning multi-sided platforms, we had to deal with the dilemma which is the best method, a separated market approach, the so-called side-by-side method, privileged by the European Commission, or the US approach aimed at assessing dominance, looking at the platform as a whole. We opted for the former, and I think that the outcome is not that different from what could emerge from the latter approach. Until now, we had not to explicitly define a dominant position with respect to the so-called ecosystem. I mean, to estimate market shares, in the Amazon case and in other cases dealing with digital platforms, we have had to expand our toolkit beyond traditional parameters like sales, volumes, and capacity. I mean, given the diminishing significance of price competition, we've explored other meaningful parameters such as the number of clicks or users. However, in doing the assessment, we could benefit of previous decision of the European Commission. Therefore, at the end of the day, I can say that it was not a mission impossible, so it was quite easy. Much more challenging, I think, has been the definition and the assessment of the markets affected by the abusive conduct, particularly when the conduct concerns innovative services or even nascent markets, as in 2 cases involving Google. In the Google Analytics case, Google refused to include in its Android Auto system an app providing innovative services related to the recharging of electric vehicles, ranging from finding a charging station to managing the charging session and reserving a place at the station, thus favoring its own Google Maps app in a crucial stage of the development of new electric mobility services. It was not easy to identify properly the scope of the restriction. In another case, the Google HODA case, Google refused interoperability in sharing data on its platforms with HODA, that was a startup that developed an innovative data portability service allowing consumers to monetize their individual data. Again, a nascent market, and the boards of this market were not clearly defined. Then there are the challenges of defining new theories of harm. While in the Amazon FB case, the already mentioned Amazon FB case, could be categorized within the traditional exclusionary tying category, we couldn't resist the temptation to view Amazon's conduct also through the lens of the more contemporary, and I would say fashionable, self-preferencing framework. You cannot avoid it. A bit more intricate is defining the theory of harm in cases at the intersection of antitrust and privacy concerns. Take the already mentioned Google HODA, the one concerning the interoperability, recently resolved with committance, where the alleged abusive conduct, obstacles to interoperability, appeared to infringe both competition law and the GDPR, the European Privacy Regulation. Similarly, in another case, Apple ATT case, where it is contested Apple's imposition of a more restrictive policy on cookies on third-party developers compared to Apple itself, privacy could be viewed either as a qualitative factor or as an ingredient of discriminatory strategy, specifically a self-preferencing strategy. The strategic use of privacy as a business justification to pursue anti-competitive advantages currently addressed in numerous Apple ATT investigations, show the tensions between these 2 areas of law. In my view, it might be argued that rather than strengthening the antitrust enforcement against gatekeepers and their data strategies, the explicit inclusion of privacy harms in antitrust proceedings turns out to be a potential course for competition authorities, providing players with an opportunity for regulatory gaming to undermine the antitrust enforcement. But, and I'm going to the conclusion of my first round, it's not all about the digital realm. Valuable insights have also emerged from more traditional investigation. In this regard, I'd like to conclude this first intervention by highlighting the European Court of Justice preliminary ruling on Unilever Italia, a less recent case involving the market of packaged ice cream and featuring quite traditional practices like fidelity discounts or exclusivity clauses. The European Court of Justice emphasized the crucial role of economic reasoning, and as an economist, I'm quite happy, but I'm even happier when it underscored that economic analysis need not always result in quantitative metrics and shouldn't be confined to implementing the so-called as efficient competitor test. However, even when the application of the test might be required, it should be approached with a dynamic perspective. And for now, I'd stop here.
Okay, Andre, many thanks for your clear presentation and for speaking about new theories of harm, for the challenges that are posed with the connection between privacy and competition laws, which is a challenge for all the competition authorities nowadays. And finally, I guess, for reminders that we still have the traditional markets to deal, so it's not only about digital, of course. So now moving from Europe to Asia, we have Feng Yi, Again, I'd like to hear from you about your experience in Taiwan. I do know that you have some experience to relate us about digital markets and one particular case. So looking forward to hear from you, Frank.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me being here today. So I would like to share Taiwan's experience in unilateral conduct cases by using the Food Panda case, which is a narrow MFN case happened in 2021. So the TFTC received complaints from the restaurant stating that Food Panda requesting its partnering restaurants to set the menu price uniformly in both the restaurants and on the Food Panda platform, making the restaurants unable to set different prices in different channels. In September 2021, the TFTC imposed penalties on Food Panda for $33,000. Considering Food Panda is not considered a domestic enterprise, the TFTC then used the rule of reason analysis to determine if the restriction will restrain competition. During the investigation, the TFTC was faced with difficulties on market definition and the impact and the interest among the various stakeholders. So the first challenge is what the relevant market is. Food Panda claimed that the relevant market should be the eat-at-home market or the remote ordering market. Food Panda believes that it's not appropriate to define the market of the food delivery platform. The reason is that consumers can order takeout meals from restaurants through different channels, and restaurants that often take out services usually use multiple channels to sell their products. Therefore, it's improper to include all kinds of home delivery remote ordering in the market, including the online platform and the offline physical channels. However, the TFTC had a different view. According to the TFTC, the food delivery platform plays the role of intermediary between the restaurants and consumers, which is the typical two-sided platform. And there is an indirect network effect between the two ends of the two-sided platform. Because the delivery platform serves as a medium for direct and simultaneously transactions between the consumers and the restaurants, it is classified as a transaction-based platform. The TFTC then concluded that the relevant market should be the food delivery platform market. The second challenge is how the TFTC adopted the rule of reason analysis to determine if such narrow MFN clause will restrain competition. Food Panda claims that the dining pricing requirements is designed to allow consumers to enjoy lower prices for the order on the Food Panda platform, so that there will be more consumers using the platform. And the partnering restaurants will also receive benefits such as more orders and brand awareness. Food Panda thinks that if the restaurant cannot accept the terms, they could work with Uber Eats, which have another 40% of the market share, or other delivery platforms instead. Therefore, there is no risk of restricting competition. However, Food Panda's arguments did not persuade the TFTC. The TFTC believed that Food Panda's narrow MFN clause has restrained competition. First, it restricts competition between direct and platform sales channels because these restaurants cannot set different prices for consumers using the Food Panda platform and those who do not. Second, since the restaurants using the Food Panda platform have to pay the commissions but cannot increase the prices posted on the Food Panda platform, it is likely that restaurants will have to increase the price and the restaurant's platform cost will be shared evenly to customers, whether or not they use the platform. Third, it will cause an effect similar to the across-platform price parity agreement, because in Taiwan, the indoor prices is usually the lowest price, i.e. the price floor. By demanding that the prices on foodpanda platform should be the same as the in-store price, foodpanda could indirectly ensure that the prices on other delivery platforms would not be lower than the prices posted on foodpanda. This weakens other delivery platforms' incentives and abilities to provide better prices and compete with foodpanda. And the TFTC's challenges do not come to an end after its decision. foodpanda filed an appeal to the court. In the court proceedings, foodpanda claimed that there is no concrete evidence to support TFTC's positions. There was then also another challenge as to whether the court has sufficient knowledge to deal with cases that involve digital economy, and if the court will strictly require the TFTC to obtain sufficient evidence to prove that such a narrow MFN clause could possibly impede competition. At the moment, the case is still pending at the court. So I'll first stop here for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Frank, for explaining this foodpanda case, which seems to be quite interesting. Now moving even far away from Taiwan, moving to New Zealand. So we have John. John, I do know that you have been facing some challenges when dealing with digital markets in New Zealand, being a smaller competition authority. I don't know what kind of challenges do you face, and can you let us know from your experience and your view on this?
Yeah, sure. Buenos dias, good morning, and thank you very much to the organisers for this wonderful event. It's my first time at ICN, and it's just wonderful so far. Unlike New Zealand's experience in unilateral conduct cases, we are overflowing in challenges in this area in New Zealand. And I suppose that the most fundamental way to describe it is, I suppose, why do I not have a case here to discuss with you, a unilateral conduct case? The answer is we haven't taken one for 10 years, essentially. And the reason for that is that our test, the statutory test, has until very recently been framed around the purpose of the conduct. So the only way to breach the statutory standard is for the Commission to persuade a court that this firm with market power intended to use its market power to substantially lessen competition. Now, it might sound like a reasonable test. The way our courts have interpreted that test is to say, well, if a firm that doesn't have substantial market power might also do this thing, then you cannot say that a firm with substantial market power had the purpose of lessening competition when it did it. And so, rather than having, in a sense, a higher standard for firms that have got substantial market power, the test became, if anybody would ever do this, then it's fine, even if you've got substantial market power. That led to a very convoluted form of analysis in court, where the essence of it was to try and define a counterfactual world where the firm who's being accused of unilateral conduct, the firm looks exactly, more or less the same as it does now. It's still a big firm, but it faces competition. And then you say, and you imagine that world. And so, for example, if it's suppose it's a telecom case with a telecom network, a fixed line telecom network, then you say, oh, well, we need to envisage a world in which a fixed line telecom network competes with a whole lot of other fixed line telecom networks, so it doesn't have market power, and then ask ourselves the question of whether this conduct would have been undertaken in that world. It's completely crazy, and it led into this, it led the analysis completely away from the reality of the situation and into this bizarre hypothetical world. So, I mean, we've been in that situation for 10 years, and the Commission has for 10 years been trying to get the law changed, and some people here have helped us in that, and eventually this year it did get changed. So we now have our standard now is purpose or effect. So an effect of lessening competition will be enjoined by the standard. But in the meantime, we've lost the market has been carrying on for 10 years without this test, without any enforcement of this test, and kind of knowing that it's not going to be enforced. So we're in a bad situation, and we're now internally catching up with what it takes to do these cases. So that's our number one challenge, I guess. Added to that, we're a small agency. There's 60 people in our competition branch, 13 in the group that would go after these kind of unilateral cases. It's not a big team, and the cases, as you well know, of course, are inherently complicated and expensive to run. We also have, at various times, had trouble with jurisdiction issues, particularly in digital markets, where the company's headquartered offshore, and you have years of litigation trying to grab them and subject them to our jurisdiction. So those are the sort of these are pretty basic challenges. On the bright side, I guess we've been watching and learning a lot from these international forums, and I think we're well placed now. We've got a pipeline of cases ready to go, but those are our main challenges, I think.
Okay, thank you, John. So we got a nice overview of different parts of the world, different competition authorities, but at the end I can say there are different competition authorities, but similar problems and similar challenges all over the world. So that's what good when we deal with competition law, that we are facing the similar problems even though we are in different parts of the world. So having this in account, now we move to solutions and to what kind of solutions can we find in order to solve these challenges, to address these challenges, and to keep competition enforcement effective and fit for purpose. So in this second round of the panel, we'll address these issues and how can we deal with these challenges. So, Raiko, now moving to you, I know you mentioned the ICN report, a very important report from March 2023, but now I'd like to hear from you about the JFTC experience tackling the challenges in unilateral conduct cases. So, what can we know from the Japanese experience? What do you think are the key considerations in these areas, Raiko?
Thank you. I'll be happy to share the uniquely Japanese experience, but before I do that, I was very happy I was able to. I thanked Connie and CNMC for the wonderful conference, but I forgot the next important thing, which was that the report is available on the ICN website, and if you have not read it yet, please do read it. You'll find it very interesting. Now to Nuno's question about the Japanese experience. I don't need to repeat the challenges, but what we have done at the JFTC is we have been taking a multi-pronged approach, and particularly we focused on advocacy, and we decided before we understand, the first thing we have to do is to understand exactly what the challenges are by understanding what's going on in the market. So we have been doing a series of market studies. So I'll introduce them to you. In June last year, we published a report of a result of a survey regarding trade practices in the cloud service sector. The assessment is that the cloud service has been quite competitive, but recent trends show increasing market concentration and point to very likelihood that the market structure will be less competitive in the very near future. The market study report on mobile OS and mobile app distribution was published this February. It points out that the mobile OS and App Store market is an effective duopoly of Apple and Google, and they can use this for self-preferencing and other conducts that cause concerns under the Japanese competition law, the AMA. The report suggests desirable measures from competition policy point of view, such as improvement of consumers' ability to switch. Another report on digital news content distribution released this September identifies that type of conduct of news portal operators can be a concern under the AMA. Then, in order to assist both news platform operators and news media operators to work on resolving these concerns, it makes clear conduct regarding joint negotiation of news media operators that may cause competitive concerns and which may not under the AMA. Furthermore, in March this year, we launched market studies on so-called connected TVs, such as smart TVs that have internet connection functions and streaming devices that connect TVs to the internet, where the digital platforms are involved. For example, we're looking into whether TV OS providers take advantage of their power to manipulate the ranking displayed on TV home screen. I hope I'll be able to share this and other market studies in the near future at the ICN, and I'd like to thank Andreas Mund for keeping up the lively ICN discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Raquel, for reminding us the importance of the market studies, namely to address these challenges, and from the Japanese experience in this area. Now, moving to you, Andrea, you mentioned the track record that you have in the Italian Competition Authority in the digital markets. You mentioned all these cases, Amazon and all that. And also, you remind us the importance of the traditional markets, not to be forgotten by competition authorities. So, having in account all your experience, what would you recommend for the competition authorities from your experience in order to tackle the unilateral conducts? So, Andrea, can you let us know?
Okay, trying to answer to Nuno's request, in this second round, I'd like to briefly address some aspects, concerning reinforcing institutional capacity and increasing interagency cooperation. First, it seems interesting to say that the Italian Competition Authority has a new tool in her arsenal to address unilateral conduct in digital markets. In 2021, the legislator enriched our toolkit with a powerful provision related to the abuse of economic dependence in the digital economy. A provision which could, and I would add should, complement the Digital Markets Act. A distinguishing feature of this new provision is that it allows for the presumption of economic dependence when the conduct involves major digital platforms. The legal basis, I must say, a presumption, and I want to underline that is rebuttable. So it is not necessarily an automatic game. This legal basis prompted an investigation against Meta, which interrupted negotiation with CIAE, the largest collecting Italian society for licensing musical rights, for the use of artistic music, and subsequently removed their musical content from its platforms. The investigation is ongoing. We'll see. I'm quite curious, but because we would like to arrive at a new jurisprudence with this tool that has to be handled with care, because it hasn't to be interpreted as a shortcut rather than the abuse of dominance. But could be usefully implemented. Second, the use of commitment decisions and interim measures for timely intervention. I mean, we have favored this approach in the previously mentioned case, adopting a commitment decision in the Google HODA one and imposing interim measures in the just mentioned Meta-CI case. But above all, I want to stress the growing need for cooperation with other national competition authorities, both at the EU level and beyond. More than ever before, the assessment of unilateral conduct, not just in digital cases, requires a higher degree of collaboration. I mean, our regional network, the European Competition Network, has proven to provide an effective cooperation framework on competition enforcement. I can mention, I mean, the Italian experience, I can mention the fruitful collaborations in cases like booking, a case concerning price parity clauses, jointly investigated with the French agency and the Swedish authority. The Lydian case, a case concerning excessive pricing in the pharmaceutical sector, again with Netherlands and Spain, and the already mentioned Amazon FBA and the Aspen case, another case concerning excessive pricing in the pharma industry, where the collaboration with the European Commission was extremely strict, extremely daily collaboration. At the global level, the ICN provides a unique forum to deepen our relationships with other overseas agencies and shape international best practices in antitrust. For instance, we recently, the Italian Competition Authority, recently formalized a memorandum of understanding with the Australian authority. Finally, I would like to conclude with a remark on the intersection of competitive concerns with other vital public interests, including personal data protection, consumer protection, and information pluralism. I mean, to navigate these complex waters effectively, more extensive collaboration with public authorities, government agencies, and independent bodies responsible for promoting and safeguarding these public interests is essential. It's not easy. I mean, I think that this holistic approach allows us to identify coherent and effective courses of action. The Italian experience underscores that different levels of collaboration are not just valuable, but increasingly necessary. In our specific case, collaboration extended even within our own agencies, particularly with departments responsible for consumer protection, which I would describe as a sort of collaboration within the same building. And again, even within the same building, collaboration is sometimes quite costly and it requires efforts, but efforts are fruitful. However, I must acknowledge that collaboration can be complicated and costly, not always aligning with the pursuit of a quick response. I mean, the mantra in the digital economy, we have to reply immediately, which appears to be the central aim of the new regulatory approach to address digital platforms. I mean, competition authorities are accustomed to collaborating with sectorial regulators, although it's not always a straightforward process. And given the pivotal role played by privacy and individual data, cooperation with data protection agencies will be of growing importance. And I think it will be crucial, but given the different cultural backgrounds, it will also be a quite difficult task. And that's all, but for my gratitude for your attention and your patience. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea, for reminding us of these topics. You know, I would say that the interagency cooperation is quite important, and following the European Court of Justice decision, we do know that the cooperation, namely with the protection data agencies, is quite important in order to solve the privacy and competition law issues that we are addressing now. The proposal for interim measures that you remind us is also quite important. And finally, the international cooperation. I do think we have seen in this panel that we have global problems, and in order to tackle global problems, we have to find global solutions, and that demands international cooperation. And the ICN is one of the forums, of course, that we are here to try to tackle these problems. So now moving to Fang again, we heard about the Panda case, and could you just let us know what's the Taiwan Fair Trade Commission experience in this, and how have you in Taiwan have approached the challenges that we are facing in the digital markets, and how we can learn from your experience in Taiwan?
Sure. So in view of the increasing unilateral conducts in relation to digital platform, the TFTC set up a digital platform industry task force in 2022 with a focus on, among others, the prevention of improper anti-competitive conducts. Following the release of the draft in March 2022 for public consultation, and after collecting and considering all parties' comments, the TFTC finalized and released its white paper on competition policy in the digital economy in December 2022. The white paper summarized the main competition issues in the digital economy and provides its position and guiding principles of enforcement for enterprises reference. These issues include challenges to conventional market definition, the assessment and analysis of market power, price discrimination, MFNs, restriction on online sales, data privacy, and market competition. This white paper could provide a good reference for the court to provide certain background knowledge on the digital economy when it reviews relevant cases. The white paper also provides suggestions of possible regulatory amendments. Following the publication of the white paper, the TFTC has promulgated a draft amendment to the guidelines on the market definition to consider the indirect network effects under the structure of multi-sided market for the definition of relevant market. Moreover, the TFTC also progressively introduced information technology in the case analysis and improve its technological enforcement capabilities by employing digital tools. After accumulating considerable enforcement experience, the TFTC may further promulgate guidelines on competition issues relating to the digital economy. This may include the TFTC's position as to whether there should be another approach or analysis more suitable for the digital market. For the horizontal effects that could arise from the MFN clause, the TFTC intends to include the vertical cartels in the definition of the concerted action. These are the approaches and solutions from the TFTC to tackle the challenges around the unilateral conduct cases. Thank you.
Thank you, Fang. Also, to remind us the role of advocacy here in tackling these challenges is quite important, to understand what's the position of the competition authorities, what's their understanding of these markets. So moving to New Zealand, John, again, back to you. I know you have a smaller competition authority similar to mine, so I suppose we are facing the same challenges, although we are in different parts of the world. So knowing that you have limited resources, how are you able to tackle these problems and these challenges that we learned from the first round of panels?
Yeah, thanks, Unal. So I think from our point of view, there's a couple of things, and there are some echoes here back to Reiko's discussion of market studies, which we found to be very helpful in terms of both getting broader understanding of markets and identifying potential problems, and also to Fangyi's discussion about advocacy and guidance. But if I just start with something a bit more prosaic, which is, as you would have heard from my first round, we've got a target-rich environment in New Zealand. There's a lot going on there that has not been really addressed. And so we're putting a lot of effort into prioritisation of matters and also into internal process efficiency. And so if I just start with that first one, you know, with a small team and facing multiple issues, we get a lot of complaints. So we have and we just obviously cannot, I'm sure you're all in the same position, we cannot take up everything. So we have a hurdle for opening an investigation, and if a matter gets to that point, then we start as what we call a low-level investigation, which has got a strict timeline on it of 3 months, and at the end of 3 months there's a very careful assessment as to whether this is a go or no go, and then we've got another checkpoint. If it gets through that, we've got another checkpoint at every 3 months essentially, just to try and get away from this risk of zombie investigations, things that are sitting there that people have invested a lot of time and effort into, and you're not really sure whether they're going to go anywhere. So those kind of things are a huge drag on internal resources. So we're putting a lot of effort into that, and I think that's starting to pay off, and including in that process, in those decisions, prioritisation about if this matter was to go all the way, how much would it cost, how long would it take, and what's the opportunity cost, if you like, what matters would we have to not pursue if we took this one. So those sorts of processes I think are helping us a lot, and we've got a pipeline now that's close to being approved for litigation and close to filing. And then I suppose on the other side of things, and I was struck earlier by Benoit's comments about we've got quite a varied toolbox, and it's we really should be using lots of things and matching the tool to the problem. So in some cases, advocacy which can take all sorts of forms is really the best way to go. We've found that written guidance is really welcomed by our business community and the bar, and particularly in the case of when there's a law change, as we've just had in our unilateral conduct provision. So we put out some guidance. You've got to be very careful about how you write this guidance, obviously, because in a sense you're binding yourself. But we gave the community as much certainty as we could on that, and that was greatly appreciated. And then other forms of advocacy, also, we will certainly take the opportunity to get our voice out there in the media. We had one just very recently. I was talking to Nuno about it the other day, that where there was a refusal to supply and it was of a publicly, it was a retail product, a breakfast cereal that everybody knew about, and so it was a matter that kind of caught the imagination of the public, and it was a threatened refusal to supply to a discount retailer that was providing competition in the grocery sector, and we went out fairly hard with press release expressing real concern about this. And the firm backed down within a few days. They said, "Oh, we deny that we broke any law, but we see your point. We won't do this." So, to me, that's an example of just you doing whatever you can, whatever it takes, even if it's a little bit novel and risky. That's way better than a long case. So yeah, I think this. Back to Benoit, it's horses for courses. Pick your tools right, and from our point of view, that internal prioritisation is making a big difference.
Okay, thank you. I think it's been a very interesting and fruitful panel. I do think that what's interesting about the ICN meetings and all that is that we get to visit wonderful cities such as Barcelona, but at the end to learn from each other's experience. And that's the most important that we take out from the ICN meetings, that we learn and then we can improve our role, not only as competition authorities, but also in the NGAs, being lawyers and all that. We can learn and we can improve. And I do think that this panel was wonderful because we were able to learn the Panda case in Taiwan, the Italian experience in such digital markets and traditional markets, the role of the market studies in trying to tackle unilateral conducts, the importance of the interagency cooperation, and I do think in the connection between privacy and competition it will be very important for the future to enhance this type of cooperation, the role of international cooperation, the possibility to use interim measures in cases of unilateral conducts, the role of advocacy, and finally, the importance of smaller and medium competition authorities to handle with the resources they have in order to tackle enforcement in digital markets and traditional markets. So again, I do think at the end we all have learned much, and we have improved our knowledge of the way to enforce and to tackle unilateral conducts. So I was happy to be moderating this panel, and please join me in a round of applause to all the panelists, and thank you all.